Once again, back, it's the incredible Dale Valor's Inner Game Podcast. I'm rapper turned dating coach Dale Valor, your inner game wingman. Listen, here's the deal. If you're new to this podcast, what we're talking about is inner game. What is inner game? Inner game is the relationship that you have with you. If all the other relationships in your life are suffering in large part, and usually it's due to the relationship that you have with you sucks, right? So if you don't like yourself, how can you expect anybody else to either? So here's the deal, man. We're going to go deep on so many inner game concepts in this podcast. I really am glad that you're here. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a long timer, welcome back. And let's hop in.
And when I say a lot of reading, I mean a fucking lot of reading. I'm talking sales, marketing, PR, relationships, models by what's his face name? Mark Manson, Brian Bajian, and then that time period is also when I believe that time period is when I first read by far the most influential book I've ever read on the subject of women or inner game or sex or romance or anything. It's The Alabaster Girl by Zanparian.
Yeah, I'm familiar. My book's better, but it's okay.
I haven't read your book, so I wouldn't know. I actually wrote a book on the subject too called Love is a Battery, which relates all love to physics essentially. And it relates magnetism and stuff to the actual physical operation of a battery and AC current, DC current anyways. But I originally was going to call it A Nerd's Guide to Love, and then I switched it to Love is a Battery. But Zanparian at that time, this was like 2014, 2015. Yeah. I mean, that book fucking rocked my world. I mean, we're talking like, I mean, more than anything I've ever seen or read in my entire life. I mean, that book, I mean, it was like being literally reborn. I mean, I mean, even to this day, I even just think about it and I'm almost in tears. I mean, just absolutely just tore me into little pieces and I had to rebuild myself. And that book essentially was combined with, just the raw, just on the streets, talking to girls nonstop. That combination was kind of like when things started to really change and I started getting really interested in this whole subject of improvement and wanting to get better and wanting to understand women and understand men and understand myself, and that I didn't know anything and that no one else knew anything. And it was kind of like this whole birthing moment of holy shit, and then that's kind of when I started reading Mark Manson and I got involved with Brian Bajian with The Fearless Man for a short time here in LA. It was a very short time, but I was watching a lot of his videos and stuff. He's got great content. And then I got into modern success. That was way later though, obviously. Yeah. But it's been a nonstop ever since Zanparian's book. And I always come back to Zanparian's book. So every 2 or 3 years, I'll reread The Alabaster Girl. And then in 2021, I think just before I got into modern flirting or modern success, I did the Amorati, which is actually, I'm wearing an Amorati ring right now. The Amorati, they have an essentials program. It might have changed, but they have an essentials program. They have a mastery program. And at that time, they only had essentials. And I had already done some other stuff with the Amorati, but they're always creating new things. There was a podcast and then there wasn't, and then it came back and there's always something new. And I did the essentials program with the Amorati with a guy named Lee Simmons. It was a 90-day program, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they had a mastery program with Zan personally. Oh, and it was by invite only. It was by interview invite hybrid only. Yeah. And I reached out and I said, Zan, I've been a big fan of your work for many, many years, and your work has changed my life. And I always come back to your book, and I did the essentials, and I really, really want to get into the mastery program. And he let me come into the mastery program, and it was me and just a few other guys. It was like 6 guys. And then I did a 90-day mastery program with Zan personally.
Did you go over to Romania?
No, I have not gone to Romania. No, I want to, and I wanted to, and it just never happened. There was always too much happening, and it's just literally the opposite side of the planet. And I just, a lot of passport related stuff that I've been doing over the past few years involved all the citizen nationality stuff. And I just haven't. And then there was COVID, and it's just one thing after the next. So, but yeah, it's always been kind of my dream to do the ZD, what would Zan do program, or one of the programs that they offer out there in Bucharest. And I've just never done it. But then again, like I said before, once this thing that I'm doing started to blow up, and I started to get, now the thing is that the women that are attracted to me, they're beautiful, they're intelligent, they're stable, they're so intelligent, they're so smart, they're so emotionally stable, they're so fun. It's like, it's not just like a bunch of junk. It's not like what a lot of really hot women experience, where they're just getting fucking mindlessly hit on by drones all day long and they just want to like kill somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the women that are coming into my life, they are like fucking unbelievable. Mm. Like holy fuck, like you're interested in me. Like there was a whole period there where I had to be like, I literally couldn't even believe it. It's like all these incredibly intelligent, funny, amazing, stable, beautiful women are coming after me in my DMs. And I'm like, what the fuck planet am I living on? So I sort of have kind of like gone through this whole recalibrated shift where I'm like, I don't even see the point to go to Bucharest, Romania. I don't even see the point to be in modern flirting right now, because I don't even know. This is like a whole new chapter that I have to figure out how to deal with and how to manage and what I want out of this and what I want to do with all this. And but I'm telling you, the inner game started when I was 19 years old, and I was working on it all the time, as much as I could. But I was kind of a dumbass. That was in my early 20s. And then when I hit about 24, 25, like I said, that was kind of when it started to get real serious. And then from 25 all the way up until 37, it was like I would, no joke, literally always carrying a book. I had a little satchel, and I was always carrying some kind of a book. I either had an ebook on my phone, because we're talking back in the BlackBerry days, so I either carried a book, or I had a book, or I had something. I have books all over the place, and I had them in my, I had one at work, I had one at home, and I had one in my bag. Or if I was really into one, I had just one in my bag. I mean, if I so much as even took a shit, I was like, I would bring my book to the bathroom, and I would spend 15 minutes and I would read, maybe a page and a half or 2 pages of a book. I mean, I'm not kidding. And if it was an ebook, I would listen to it while I was driving, so I could do ebook, book combinations.
Right.
And I had my whole life stretched out from 2014, 15, all the way until the past couple of years. I've kind of chilled out on a lot of that, but for like 12 years, that's all I did. And it was either marketing, sales, finance, business, stuff at my church, dating, sex, romance, seduction. It was always something that I was reading. And that's basically, that was my inner game evolution, essentially, in a nutshell.
That's dope, man. You're a Robert Greene guy?
I loved Robert Greene. Yeah. I didn't read the seduction one. I read 24 Laws of Power, and then I read the other one, 48 Laws of Power, and then there's another one. What's the other one? There's 3. There's seduction, power, and what's the other one?
Wow, he's got a bunch at this point. But
I read like half of another one. I read 48 Laws of Power, and then I read,
what is there? There's 48 Laws of Power. That's the one he's probably most known for, right?
Oh yeah.
But the art
Mastery. I think Mastery is the one.
One of the newer ones.
I think I read like half of Mastery, and I read all of Power. No, that's not it. No, I think it was Mastery. I think I read all of Power, for sure, all of Power, and then I think maybe half of Mastery. Yeah.
Okay.
And another guy I really enjoyed too is Stephen Hawking. I think it's Stephen. Is it Stephen Hawking? Dr. Stephen?
Well, Steve Hawking's the guy in the
wheelchair.
No,
not the guy in the wheelchair. I think it's the same name. Let me see. His books are, oh boy, Stephen. Let's see, something Hawkins, David Hawkins. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You think of David Goggins?
No, David Hawkins.
Okay.
David Hawkins is the guy who wrote like Letting Go and like, let me pull it up here. David Hawkins. He wrote Letting Go, and he wrote all those books that had little triangles on them. He's got Letting Go, Power versus Force, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, The Map of Consciousness Explained, Healing and Recovery, the Eye of the I, EYE of the letter I. His books are wow, like incredible. I mean, I would just pick up anything and I would read it. And if I liked it, I would just go on Amazon and it would say, well, if you like that, you'll probably like this. And that's it. That's all I did for 12 years.
You're the perfect Amazon buyer.
I'm the perfect Amazon buyer. Yeah. I would try as hard as I could to actually rate each one too. Cause I was like, God, I really need to get on there and rate all these. And, yeah, my rating for, the Alabaster Girl has the most like thumbs up or helpful, whatever. Yeah. Wow. It's a very long thought out review on Amazon. But yeah, I read just tons. I mean, I read between 2014 and now I probably read, I don't even know how many hundreds of books, probably several hundred to maybe 1,500, maybe more. It's hard to tell because sometimes you have something like 48 Laws of Power. That's like reading 5, 6 books, 7 books, 8 books.
Yeah, no doubt. You know,
even the footnotes are like, oh my God, I want to go and research this guy now. He gives a little blurb about some old warrior from 400 years ago. And you're like, well, who's this? I want to know more about this. So, you know, books like that, you know, you wind up, I don't want to say in the weeds because that sounds you're in the clouds, really. You're, wow, this is so cool. Let's fucking, you know, so you wind up putting a lot more. Then you have stuff like Mark Manson, which is an easy read, you know. So it goes all over the place, you know, like my book is probably a second grade level, easy breezy, you know.
Yeah. I get
so it's just kind of like, it depends on the book. But if I relate it all back and say like one book is equal to like a Mark Manson book, we're talking about, you know, 1,500 books here. So
I got you. You know who's got a great book?
Who?
Dale Valor.
What is your book called? Coming, right? What is your book called?
Inner Game.
Inner Game. And when did you didn't have that when I was in the program? Is that?
No,
I don't think.
No, I didn't. That came out. When did that come out, Siobhan? About almost a year ago.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's an easy. Is it like a Mark Manson style? Is it real? It's real easy.
It's like
it's written by a third grader, so.
Yeah, right. It's written in crayon.
That's hilarious.
I wrote it on the back of like a big boy's, you know, placemat for kids. You know, I just.
Oh my God! You got the crayons out.
No, man. So yeah, about a year ago it came out. And my writing style, like, you know, I'm trying not to pat myself on the back here, but my writing style, like, I think is kind of a combination of Mark Manson, Neil Strauss, and Robert Greene.
Neil Strauss. Yeah, that's another good
one.
Like
I try to write it in a very digestible way, you know, with a lot of, you know, kind of silly kind of humor to it and things like that. And, you know, like oddball references and things of that sort. But I structured it like a Robert Greene book. You know, like,
okay.
You know, like, so for example,
like a researcher.
Yeah. But I mean, more so what I mean is like the literal structure. So, you know, like law 1, this, and then,
I see,
you know, here's the history of that law. Here's the application of that law. Here's, you know, like, and so that's the way that Inner Game is structured.
That makes sense. That's like the polar opposite of Xanperian.
Right. It's not flowy. You know what I mean?
Xanperian is like being, it's like a Alice in Wonderland being transported into the, like, floating through space, and like not space, but like floating through like an old, like if Lord of the Rings was merged with like a rom-com.
Yeah.
You know, like Lord of the Rings and the Notebook, you know what I mean? Like combined, that's Xanperian, you know?
Well, his is more story-esque. You know what I mean?
Yeah. His is more like, it's like being whisked away into a, it's hard to even, it's like being it's like you just Peter Pan out of the into this fairyland that you're just flying through the trees of this like Nordic forest. I don't know how to really explain it, but yeah, it's all because I don't write like Zampieri either. So it's also probably the most influential book I've ever read in my life by far. So it's just kind of an interesting talk about that because it's just such a unique style that's so different than anything I've ever seen. But yeah, I understand. So it's more grounded. That's kind of how mine is too. Mine's a little more grounded, but with a humor grounded, and then some humor sparkled in pretty good.
Yeah. I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
I got a new book, as Shabam knows. That's, basically we're on the last revision.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's called Unlocking Unstoppable Confidence. And
nice.
This is more of a 30-day guide to increasing confidence. So like day one, here's kind of the theme. Here's the action steps. Go out and do this exercise. And then day two, here's the next thing, right? And so on and so forth. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a little bit shorter than because Inner Game came out a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. It's like 300 pages.
Oh wow, okay.
But yeah, dude, I got you. I'll definitely send you one for sure.
Hell yeah, that'd be beautiful. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, anyone, it's so funny when you publish your first book, you realize how much hell and how much work goes into it, and you realize that it's probably going to take you 10 years to sell enough copies to pay for what it costs to print the damn thing. And it's so funny because it's a situation where, but I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but I published my first book in 2019. It was called Don't Be a Slave to Your Clients, Break Your Chains and Regain Your Sanity. And it's all about installing marketing and sales systems into your company in a way where you pick your clients, they don't pick you.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that there's a whole other side of becoming an author that people don't realize until they've become an author, which is there's this whole other type of non-monetary karmatic flow that occurs. It's almost indescribable. It's sort of like people treat you differently. Certain doors just kind of magically open, whereas they didn't before. It's weird kind of how it works. It's almost like you're putting your money into something and you're putting your heart and soul into something and you really want to help people with it. And I don't know about you, but in the last, I guess recently maybe I've started to sell a few more books here and there, but if I were to go on my Amazon KDM thing and look at all my sales since 2019, maybe I've sold enough of my 2 books to pay for all the money that went into the cover design and the editing and maybe possibly I've made enough to covered to zero, maybe. Maybe I'm just now starting to get into the green. So it's just kind of funny that the amount of care and the amount of interest in helping other people and the amount of interest that a person has to have to give that information to others in a consumable way to write a book is just tremendous. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I think the only people who really realize that are authors.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If anybody sits down outside of somebody, Stephen King or somebody, if anybody sits down, like I'm writing this and all this is going to do is print money. You know what I mean? Like most people who are writing something, need to really go into it knowing that this isn't something that's to get you rich. You know what I mean? Like,
this is something to get you broke.
Right. Like, you'd be better off going to the casino, man. You know what I mean? Like, for real. So
I love it. It's so true.
But the thing is that what that does, though, is you start to gain some benefits in other areas. Right?
Oh, yeah. That's the wildest thing.
So
the wildest thing.
Yeah. So, like, by having that book, Inner Game, it's opened up many opportunities for me that I wouldn't maybe otherwise wouldn't have had,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like here's for instance. So the guy that did the cover for Inner Game, this guy, he Now he's one of the students with Modern Success. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, let's call it what it is. Like if I raise my hand, I need some help. There's going to be some people that are going to be like, what can I do for you, Dale? And that's not because I'm, like big bad me or something. It's just, but I am a coach. So, some people are going to want to help out. Right. But anyway, so the guy who was like, man, I got you, let me do this cover for you. And he did a great job. As it turns out, and I didn't know this at the time, he's a writer for television. He does The Equalizer on CBS. He does Picard on Paramount. He's been a staff writer on a gang of shows. Dude's got an Emmy. You know what I mean? And like, I didn't know any of that. He doesn't like really put it out there like that. So we get to talking and stuff like that. I'm like, man, that is so cool, man. Like that's awesome that you do that. Well, lo and behold, and this was, let's see, I was in LA for our last retreat. I think it was April, right before then, I do a podcast episode with this guy. And Shabam knows who I'm talking about. This guy, he's a divorce coach. So guys coming out of divorces, helps them regain their life back and their, in that kind of thing, right?
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, really good dude, man. Super good guy. Well, he's telling me this story about, and this really had nothing to do with his coaching or anything like that. It was kind of a side note. And I was like, whoop, let's talk about that. You know what I mean? So as it turns out, he's married to this woman who is she's the most famous most famous celebrity in the country of Mongolia. And like, he's from LA. All right. And she moved to LA to try to get her acting career off the ground. She's she's like the Taylor Swift of Mongolia. All right.
Jeez.
And like, but she's also known in, around Asian countries and things like that. But Mongolia is like home base, right? And so anyway, he doesn't know any of this. They start going out and this, that, and the third. They end up getting married. She wants to go back to Mongolia because that's where her career is and everything. And so they go back there, and he had no idea that she's like this mega star. Like they can't leave their house without getting mobbed. And so by proxy, he's a celebrity there, just because it'd be like all of a sudden you're going out with Taylor Swift. Like everyone's gonna know.
And I'm from Mongolia. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, he must be the only white dude in all of Mongolia, man. and so, and it's not that big of a country population wise. There's only like 3 million people, but all those 3 million know who she is and know who he is, Yeah. So I'm like, man, that would be a great idea for a TV show, some type of dramedy, fish out of water type of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm in LA.
White boy in Mongolia. That'd be the name of it, right?
So I'm in LA and I meet up with my guy, Chris, that did the cover work for my book, and I'm like, yo, man, like, I got to pitch you this. And so I tell him everything I just told you. And he's like, that's a fantastic idea. And so we work out an arrangement and things. I've done a little bit of writing and stuff like that. I mean, beyond my books, but like I've done a little bit of writing. But I mean, he's the expert. He's the professional by leaps and bounds more than me. So, but nonetheless, I'm like, look, bro, I'll do the heavy lifting. I'll write everything that needs to be written. We'll filter it through you. You correct anything that needs to be changed. I don't have an emotional investment here, so you'll get no pushback from me. You want to change something, change it, And when it's ready to go, you're the one with all the connections here. Let's pitch it, and whatever we get, if it gets picked up, we'll just split it 50-50. He was like, done, And so we've been going over it, exchanging notes back and forth and stuff like that. And like he's quite sure that it's going to get picked up. He's like, wow, what we got here is something special. This is really good. Now I say all that, it was all due to me just writing a book. Now, when I'm sitting down hammering out this chapter about this guy that won't go talk to this girl and how I convinced him to do it, I'm not thinking like, this is going to be, you know what? Because I'm doing this, I'm going to write a TV show. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm not thinking that at all, But because of that, that's that's what happened,
Yeah.
and all the different podcasts that I've been on and all that kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't have been on there. I've been maybe on some ones that are very like dating centric ones and things like that, maybe. But because I have a book, people are like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah. I have my first 2 books, and then I have on my website, onestupidfuck.com, which is so funny still to me. I have the state national theory page, which is a text version. It was originally all my legal work was just text. And then it didn't become videos and podcasts and all that until months and months later. So technically my state national theory page is my 3rd book. So I have technically written a book on the subject of law, but it's a book that for the longest time, it was being changed and adjusted and upgraded and added to, and some things were getting erased for so often that I couldn't publish it. And it's just in the past several months become something that isn't constantly being edited, but I'm still not going to like publish it. It's just too difficult to publish. It's going to change. It could go through a massive change tomorrow. Actually, who knows? You never know.
Yeah.
So yeah, writing a book.
Question for you also.
Yeah.
Do you think the Western economics or like society in general is collapsing or will collapse according to you? Like your perspective from because you literally deal with the system, right? From the litigation and that side.
I think that when more and more people learn how all this stuff really works, they're not going to be very happy with it, and they're going to want to see it change. And I think that, especially in America, when they start to see what America was and the systems that were in place before, let's say 1862, they're going to say, yeah, that's what we want. That's exactly what we want. I don't think there's going to be this whole, let's create a whole new system. I think what most people want, literally I've been doing it for 2.5 years. I say, I start explaining things like common law and old sheriff systems and I say old, a lot of the sheriff stuff still exists the same way it did in 1861. But I start explaining the old court systems, and I start explaining how things worked, back before the Civil War. And everyone, literally everyone, across the board that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I mean, literally we're talking 99+% of every single person I talk to that's what I want. That makes sense to me. That's what I want. That's what makes sense to me. That's what should come back to America. So just from survey information, because I'm a marketing professional. I was for many years. I still am. And I operate off of survey data. I survey all the time. I'm trying to collect information all the time. And it's a 99.9% response is, I had no idea about any of this. I hate this system. Whatever you're explaining to me about how it used to be before 1865, 1871, that sounds fantastic. That's what I want. 99.9% respond in that way. So the word collapse is a bit interesting, because it's like, okay, are we going to collapse or are we going to revert? And as more and more people in the West learn about how things really work, I don't think we're necessarily, I don't think it's going to be a collapse. I think it's going to be a reversion, which some people may consider a collapse. But yeah, money is defined by gold and silver coins. That is the definition of money.
That's what I was going to say. Wouldn't you have to go back to the gold standard?
You would have to go back to the gold standard is a broad term, though. Gold standard includes gold certificates and silver certificates. Mm. Gold certificates and silver certificates look just like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the word certificate means like a replacement for or a representative of, but the word certificate means like a direct representative of, typically.
Yeah.
So like if I had a certificate of this little pickle with a hat, It would be like a title, like a certificate of title of this little pickle. It would be the title directly represents ownership of the pickle. It wouldn't be like a whole long series of horseshit, right? So a gold certificate would be like, this is actually a bunch of silver coins here. So I have a silver coin. Okay. A gold certificate is, the word certificate means by law, this represents this, right?
Mhm.
But that's not the definition of money. The definition of money would not include an abstract. So the definition of money would just be this only.
Okay.
Now, when you start getting into the definition of the term currency or funds, that's when you start getting into paper currency, notes, promissory notes, bills of exchange, certificates, bonds. And it's actually not money. And if you look in the financial Bible, it's called Uniform Commercial Code Article 3. It literally says right at the very beginning of the UCC 3 that this is not talking about money. We are not talking about money. They literally say it straight up, right in the law. This is not money. We're not talking about money at all.
I mean, money basically comes down to, like, is the way I see it anyway. It's really just backed by trust. It's just because a dollar to me is a dollar to you.
Since 1933, the actual exact term of what our financial system is backed by, it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. But then you start going down that rabbit hole of what does that actually mean, and it's very confusing and convoluted. And the farther you go down it, you start to realize they talk a lot about, when you start to research down that rabbit hole, they talk a lot about taxation and the ability to tax. And you start thinking, well, wait a second. The full faith and credit, it hinges on the ability to tax. So the tax system is the backbone of our entire value of our whole system. Well, no wonder the world's gone to shit since 1933, because before 1933, it wasn't backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. It was backed by gold and silver. That's what backed everything. That's why we had back, between 1913 and 1933, you had Federal Reserve notes, gold certificates, and silver certificates. You had all three. And you can go back in time and you can go on Google and you can type in 1920s gold certificate, 1920s silver certificate, and you can pull it up and you can see it. Before 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, you only had gold and silver certificates. And then you go back farther and farther and farther from that, and you had gold and silver coins. So the first abstract was the certificates. Then we go forward. The next abstract was Federal Reserve notes. Then in 1933, all the gold and silver was removed through the Gold Abrogation Act from the entire society. And that's when they passed a bunch of other things called the Emergency Banking Act. And then, ironically enough, that's when they designed the full faith and credit, back the whole system. And then in 1935 is when the Social Security Act came out. So the Social Security Act and the Emergency Banking Act and the Gold Abrogation Act clause and all that, it all happened at the same time. And then you start going down that rabbit hole and you realize that full faith and credit of the United States is attached to our future potential production. And that's all tied into the Social Security system. So when you start to research all this, you start to realize this. You realize that there was one abstract, which is the gold and the silver certificate. And then there was a next abstract, which sent us off into La La Land. And we've been in La La Land ever since. So the thing is that with rampant inflation and all this kind of stuff and everything that's happening, there have been talks and there have been press releases recently of going back on the gold and silver standard. And then now we have the BRICS thing. I don't know if you guys have seen that, where there's a contract where the Federal Reserve note has been the reserve note for all, it's been the petrodollar for ages. And now that contract is coming to an end, and Saudi Arabia has already expressed that they're probably going to no longer have the American dollar being the petrodollar. And then what they're going to do is they're going to move over to the BRICS, and BRICS is talking about creating a new currency that's gold and silver backed, right? So the US dollar, which is really just the Federal Reserve note, even though it's actually a lot more than that, but no one in the West knows that. It's actually under extreme peril at this current particular time. And what's going to happen is either they're going to put everything over here back onto the gold standard, or we are going to see some sort of a collapse for sure. There's no question about it. I mean, but But the thing is that, it's just like what Dan S. Pena says, with great chaos comes great opportunity.
Yeah.
Chaos just means that a lot of the people who have had power for a long time are going to lose that power. It doesn't mean that power vanishes from the earth. It just means that that power gets placed onto a table and anyone can grab that power if they so please. It's a restructuring of power. And the reason why a lot of these huge groups and BlackRocks and everybody else, they actually plan with all of this in advance, and they put together programs to make sure that when all those chips hit the table, they can grab as many of them as they can. And people think that that's evil. Well, welcome to fucking planet Earth. I don't know. I mean, evil or not, I don't think that's, everyone is running around trying to grab whatever chips they can. I don't necessarily consider it evil. I think it's evil when it starts to hurt a lot of people. You know what I mean? But that's all subjective, or a lot of the time it depends on where you're at and what's happening. So it's a whole conversation. But when you really understand how the monetary system works in America, it's just mind blowing, because the thing is that there is no money, and you have not been able to pay for anything since 1933 in America, and that's why there's this whole negotiable instrument system where you can actually take a bill that you receive and you can write instructions and orders on it, and you can send it back, and it's considered payment. And the thing is that what we're dealing with right now is that all these banking institutions and mortgage institutions, they say, we don't accept that type of payment. But the thing is, they don't have that choice. Our legal system does not give them the choice to not accept that kind of payment. Because when you look up the definition of the word payment, the definition of the word payment is performance on a duty, contract, or obligation. So when they send you the bill and you do what's called an endorsement on that bill and you send it back, you are by definition performing. Because if you look at the laws of how negotiable instruments actually work, that's actually called performance in the law. Performance and payment are the same word. So when you endorse the instruments and you send it back and they don't follow the law in terms of that's actually a payment, that's where all the litigation comes in. That's what all of my litigation is involving. That's all I do. So it's a very, very fascinating system. And it's a system that when you really, really understand how it works, you realize that all you need to do is you can buy anything you want. You can write some shit on the bill and send it back, and it's gone. It's discharged. And then you think to yourself, well, that's not such a bad fucking system. Yeah, I don't think it is either. So the thing is, but the thing is that most Americans, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Indiana. Most Americans, you go to New Mexico, you go anywhere outside the big cities, and they don't think it's a very American system. They don't think it's a very honest thing. They think that people should work, and they think that people should work and be paid well, and they think that people should work and have to work and put in time and put in work and contribute to the society in order to get something in exchange. And when they realize that that's not at all the system that we currently have, what people think the system is a false illusion that's placed over the reality of what the situation is. The reality of what the situation is that if you endorse the instrument and send it back, it's done. It's over. And there's literally laws that say there's nothing they can do about it. It has to be applied to the account. The payment has to be applied. It literally says the payment has to be applied. And if they don't apply it, then the person who sent in the instrument to have it apply as a payment can actually sue for breach of contract. It literally says that in the fucking law. So what we're doing is we're suing for breach of, we're doing literally exactly. And I mean, we're talking word for fucking word what's in the law. That's what we're doing. We're suing for breach of contract.
Performance and payment mean the same thing to Shabam's Tinder hookers too. So
kind of get it.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, I got to
man's got to do what the man's got to do.
Like, we're running out of time here, but
no problem.
I can talk about I feel like we could do this for like 5 hours.
I know, right? It's good. It's true. We could just go on and on. We're over here and then over here and then over here. We're just having it's like a fire pit. It's like a late night beer fire pit kind of thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that would actually be quite fun.
Yeah, see, yeah.
That's such a Midwest thing for you to say too.
Oh, dude, that's Domestic beers, Miller High Life, Miller Light, and fire pits. Oh yeah, that's everything. That's life.
No doubt, man.
We're talking about life.
Like Michigan, everyone's trying to go out. Like as soon as it's like warm enough to be outside, you know what I mean? Everyone wants to sit around a fire.
Yeah.
I personally, my wife loves it. That's like, she loves doing that. To me, it's like, it's one of the most boring things ever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't particularly care. Man, clothes all smell like smoke and like, it's just not for me, man. You know what I mean? But I can't acknowledge that it is a very Midwest thing.
Sure. Yeah, we had I don't know what fire pits you've experienced. I mean, when I was a kid, first off, we were drinking way before 21. So that was always like a real, like, oh shit, we're doing.
It's different when we're
all fucking naughty. We're all fucking, yeah. But where I'm from in Indiana, like no one gave even the slightest fuck. I mean, driving drunk was practically a hobby where I'm from. So the thing is that, I know, seriously, you could drive around with a beer in between your legs. And if you aren't all over the road, you could probably get pulled over by a cop. The cop could see the fucking beer between your legs and he just kind of like make sure you weren't too drunk to drive. That's where I'm from. That's what we do.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt.
Well,
Brandon, listen, man, again, I appreciate you having on, man. This was
awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
You know what I mean? This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, man, we got to do a part 3 at some point, man.
I'm down. Let's do it.
My book too. So.
Yes, please do. I'll give you my PO box. Send it over.
Okay. Perfect.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
No doubt, man.